Hello, welcome everybody. My name is Jill Simonds. I founded Savvy Strategic Partners. We are an outsourced C-suite executing vision, increasing business value, and helping founder owners realize freedom. Welcome to Vision Untethered, conversations with inspirational visionary leaders delving into the true meaning of what it is to be untethered. Too often, business owners find themselves tethered and held back by their business. The business, as a result, is essentially held back because it cannot operate independently of the founder. It's stifling innovation, expansion, and long-term value growth and sustainability. We'll unpack together the biggest mistakes in business and in life, strategies to overcome them, and identify the saboteurs that keep many of us tied down. Today, we are thrilled to have with us a dynamic leader in the legal industry training space, Doug Stryker, who is CEO of Savvy Training and Consulting. Doug and the amazing team at Savvy Training has been at the forefront of providing innovative training solutions for law firms, ensuring teams are not only skilled, but empowered to thrive in today's fast-paced legal environment. His company, Savvy Training and Consulting, is known for offering tailored learning management systems and content libraries designed specifically for law firms. Under Doug's leadership, Savvy has grown into a trusted partner for firms across the US, helping them enhance their workforce efficiency and stay ahead of the ever-evolving legal landscape. Doug, thank you so much for being here today. Excited to have you.
Thank you for having me, Jill. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you ready to dive in today?
Let's go for it.
All right. First and foremost, what is your purpose, your passion that brought you to business ownership and specifically in this industry?
So I started out years and years and years ago in outdoor specialty retail. I was surrounded by very interesting, compassionate, dynamic leaders, and I always wanted to be one of them. And yet I was still sort of stuck being who I was in my day-to-day job. I was a merchandise manager, I was a store manager, I was a planning and allocation specialist at a large sporting goods retailer. And then I moved into the world of legal and I became the chief operating officer of a law firm, a great law firm in Denver. And I was surrounded by really amazing people who all had the equity play. And what I learned or was trying to learn was how could I be one of them? How could I have an equity stake in a business where the upside was a whole lot better than the downside, although that comes with some risk? But how could I turn into a leader, have a business that had real opportunity for growth? And it's not all it's cracked up to be, but I'm now in the very fortunate situation where I own a business with a equity stake and we're trying to grow and make decisions and build a team in order to serve our community and at the same time have profit. So it's a very interesting dynamic.
Quite a journey. What would you say are some of the mistakes you've made or learning opportunities along that journey to where you are today?
I mean, I think the better question is what mistakes haven't I made? And there's very few that I haven't made. I think, and still today, some of the learning lessons, some of the mistakes, and I remember two things people ask when you're an entrepreneur is what's your exit plan and how did you start? And when I think back to when I started, if I knew now what I knew 10 years ago, if I knew 10 years ago what I knew now, would I have still made the same decisions? And I don't know if I could ever answer that question because I'm here and the reality is that I own and run Savvy. When I got the business, when I acquired the business in late 2013, I think the mistake that I had at the time or the learning experience I had at the time is that anybody can put anything they want into a bunch of spreadsheets and make a business look really good. And I didn't understand at the time the bigger picture of the different levers that affect the business. At the time, we were a training company. We were doing 80% of our revenue was from on-site training, 20% was recurring revenue. And I didn't really understand the implications of what that meant. This was still 2014. And so, SaaS products were still brand new to the marketplace. when I got the business and in Q1 of 2014, 3 months in, my entire training industry in legal and law firms just fully cratered. And I was left with a big pile of poo. And I had to break the business down and rebuild it, not from
Mm,
scratch, but from a different perspective.
right.
Fast forward 10 years later, we've got 80% of the business coming from SaaS products, subscription based, and still 20% from live in-person training. So I think it's a really good mix. And then, of course, people ask, what's your exit plan? And honestly, still, Jill, I don't really have one.
Mm.
The business has a lot of room to grow and a lot of work that we still need to do in order to get it to a place where the words exit actually have relevance.
So true and fundamental, I think, in the work that we get to do together. So I'm excited for that journey from, where it is today, kind of as a starting point to understanding a lot of those elements that you just talked about that were, void of your awareness or understanding when you first acquired the business over a decade ago. The measurables in the business beyond just what the financial statements say and what it can look like on paper are the key areas that we're focused on with EOS, growth of the team, intellectual capital, all of the strength and its intangibles to truly, whether or not you have an exit plan and the exit is imminent or not. But what would you say across those core areas have been easy to see or are measurable in terms of what's changed over the last decade once you've been able to truly dive in? What have been kind of those key focal points for you beyond the numbers that you realized after acquiring the business that needed the most help?
I mean, honestly, the thing that needed the most help was me, in the sense that, and I think for the audience to know, you guys don't know me, but I'm extraordinarily stubborn, and I had the business, and it was cratering, and I was just borrowing money on the line of credit like crazy. We were hemorrhaging cash,
Mhm.
and there were a few people around me who said, honestly, you should just take this thing out back and shoot it. Just blow it up, declare bankruptcy, reinvent yourself, do something else.
Wow.
And that came from friends, colleagues, therapists, family. And I refused and refused. I kept hammering at the business. And for a long time, there was just two of us.
Mhm.
I was doing all the sales and operations and finance and HR and all of it. And there was a point the flashpoint was in October of 2014, where we landed our very first LMS client. The learning management system was
Mhm.
new, and I got a client in the Southeast who was our very first one. They're still a client 10 years later. And that was the moment when the needle began to move. And we got our very first subscription based client. And at
Mhm.
the time, I was working with a business coach in Austin, and we figured out the math on what I needed to do. And all I needed to do was sell two LMSs a month, right? They were $5,000 a piece, you know, on average, and I just
Mhm.
needed two a month. And if I could sell one a month, that'd be great too. In October of 2014, I sold my first one, and then I sold a second one, and then a third one, and the fourth one, and it started to build, and it created
Mhm.
this amazing energy where at the time also I was leveraging our industry partners and associations. I was on the road speaking. I got to go and speak in front of prospects at law
Mhm.
firms in their cities. I was on the road at least twice a month, and I came up
Mhm.
with a very thinly veiled sales pitch, but it was educational in nature. It was called, what was it called? The Era of Lean Training, quote,
Mhm.
and why you need an LMS. Extremely thinly veiled sales pitch. But anytime I went and spoke in front of a live audience, I would come out of it with business. In the renewal space, if I sell two $5,000 deals in a month, then keep
Mhm.
on that trajectory. And then a year from now, in that month, I've got four, and then eight.
Mhm.
And it kept building and building. And we got a really core group of community together, and we had our cheerleaders and our advocates and people who believed in what we could do because they were using it themselves. Along that same road, we made a ton of mistakes. We did things the wrong way. We put people in courses without them knowing. We put them in assessments without them knowing. They failed everything, and then they were mad at me. And so there was a lot of communication and education on the client and how to roll this product out in a way
Mhm.
that was sensible, not just sensible, but remarkable in the way that
Mhm.
we had to have an inside person, an inside cheerleader at these law firms who could communicate on our behalf of what this thing was.
Right.
And we learned over time, we learned very quickly the right things to say and do and the wrong things to say and do. And we just
Mhm.
try to do more of the right things and fewer of the wrong things.
And a lot of that time was fully dependent upon you and solely you. The
Oh,
execution
100%.
of it, you had the development of the coursework and the content creation itself. But I think biggest business value transformation that I've seen too is less dependency on you in the business for this to operate without, you constantly, leading all of those elements that you had to a decade ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's changed and it's gotten, bigger and better and more complicated. And I think
Right.
that's why you and what you bring to the table is super important, is to help organize it, standardize it, document it, make it less complicated, but also with a bigger team, that
Hmm.
everyone knows, what the rules are and what the lanes are
Yep.
and what the job is. I mean,
Hmm.
for years it was me and one other person, the content creator, but I'm doing the demos and I'm getting the leads and I'm going on the road and I'm working from the
Hmm.
cheapest hotel room I could find in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, late at night as I'm trying to
Yeah.
get ready for a demo the next day and talk to people and do my presentations, hiring a little bit of people, doing some marketing, but doing the invoicing from the hotel rooms and airplanes and
Mm.
wherever I was. And all the while being like really cheap, flying the cheapest airlines, the cheapest hotels, whatever I could do, and then show up
Hmm.
in the suit and put on the game face to be like the era of lean training. And here's why you need an LMS. And let's talk about your culture of learning. And let's
Yeah.
talk about how you can make people more efficient, productive, and the firm more profitable. But yeah, for
Yeah.
years it was me doing all the work. And so I've got extreme personal investment in
Hmm.
who the business, what the business is, who our clients are, the relationships that have been created over the years. And even though I'm slightly more distant from it on the day to day, I'm still very much in the mix with a lot
Oh,
of
absolutely.
historical information and knowledge, and still in many ways the face of parts of it.
Yes.
It's just that my
Yeah.
role's changed a little bit. Let
Absolutely.
me do a little bit more of the higher level stuff,
Hmm.
a little bit more of the visioning, where we're going, some of the bigger picture
Being a
stuff,
visionary. Yeah.
without being totally
Truly.
in the weeds all day long.
Yeah. Which is where you as a visionary thrive and what the business needs to continually grow, right? And taking that institutional knowledge and intellectual property and everything that's been developed along the way and creating mechanisms that don't require you to be the only one that can execute that. So that's huge.
Well,
Um,
I think the bigger part also is that now that I've got a super strong team of really smart, educated, empowered people. My
mhm.
role has shifted from having to do the work. But everyone always says, you don't you have to, if you want to grow, you have to stop working in the business and start working on
Yes.
the business. And that's so much easier said than done because I'm
Yes.
used to working in the business. And now it's a lot more of coaching and leadership
Yes.
and structure and documentation and all of that, but it's how to best encourage people, employees, to be their best selves. I think you said it,
Mhm.
Jill, was, what is their creative genius and how to plug into that and nurture
Yeah.
and encourage that, but also, waiting for the moment and where the red flags start showing up. Be like, where is this thing gonna go? What are the
Mhm.
red flags that I should be aware of? And then at what point, is the needle far enough that we need to apply more coaching or make bigger changes?
Yeah, absolutely. So, what strategies then have you found the most effective shifting from being so hands on and operating in the business to visionary leader focused on long term growth?
You mean besides hiring you?
Right. First and
Um,
foremost, yeah,
yeah.
having
So I
your
mean,
COO integrator.
I think one of the biggest challenges also is that I'm the sole owner, sole proprietor. I
Mm-hmm.
don't have a business partner, right? At the end of the
Mm-hmm.
day, it's just me. And there's really nobody, friends, family that I can share my dramas and issues with because A, most people don't care, and B, they wouldn't really understand. And
Mm-hmm.
so I found a group called Entrepreneurs Organization, and I
Yep.
became a member of EO in 2018 or 19. Started off in the accelerator program, which was fantastic. I graduated once we were over $1 million to EO. And along that path, a lot of really good things happened because of EO and the people that I was surrounded with. But also, I learned about EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And I had a few coaches and we self-implemented for a while. But I think the thing that shifted the business in terms of getting me out of the minutia and more into the visionary space was leveraging EOS
Yeah.
with you. When you look at the org chart or the accountability chart, I was doing everything in every box. I was
Yeah.
sales and finance and HR
Mm-hmm.
and janitorial and physical plants and accounting and
And booth manager and
yeah, all of that.
yep.
So the core part of the core idea of EOS is that you've got all these boxes of jobs and getting you can only have one name in each box. My name was in every box. And so the
Right.
idea was to get me out of a lot of those core job functions.
Yep.
And that became through hiring the best people, and maybe a
Mm-hmm.
few iterations of the best people. There were,
Yep.
I think one thing I learned from another business coach, and there's a book I forget what it's called, but like, what is the one thing that you're tolerating? What was the one thing that I was tolerating? And I tolerated a lot of crap for a long time because it took stuff off my plate, and so I tolerated subpar work because I didn't
Right.
have to do it. And once I saw those
Mm-hmm.
red flags and what I was tolerating and having the courage to make those
Mm-hmm.
changes, which was really difficult because you're talking about
Mm.
people and their jobs and their livelihood. But once I got the courage to make some very strategic changes, it allowed me to do other more fun stuff. But I think also in EOS, having the right category, having the right job, and then finding the right people and getting them on board and coaching and letting them
Mm-hmm.
flourish and blossom is really hard to do. And I needed help to do that. And help came through you, Jill. It came through EO. It came through EOS and still a few other, advisors that I keep in the wings. But even though the business problems that I've got as a small business, they're fundamentally the same problems that a business has at 10 million, 20 million, 50 million
Exactly.
dollars. And it's just, it's
Yeah.
more like whack-a-mole. The bigger you grow, the different kind of moles you got to whack and
Mm-hmm.
how to do that. Uh,
Absolutely.
it's
Yeah, the same
journey.
problems exist and majority of the time, regardless of the business size, the majority of the issues lie in people. It's people. The complexities involved with different people and have we aligned on expectations and what this role is that the right seat? Is that the right person? All the intricacies that come with human nature and interaction of multiple people just complicates things and creates most of the issues that we can point back to. And I think that you and I have been able to work through in the business over the last almost year. It's transformative. The landscape of the team, the people on board has made the biggest difference, I think. And some of that's a lack of someone just there, right? A lack of an owner in the seat. And some of it is, the need that the business had to be able to grow and ensure the right people fit then with that standard and that bar that we kind of raised when it came to a matter of looking at and assessing like what have we tolerated that's actually holding the business back from growing. It came down to the buy-in, the values, and those are all people issues and those are all rooted in solving for, I mean, what are the hardest issues to solve for, truly? So,
Well, and I mean, I think it's important to note also that what I feel about the business is because I've been in the muck of it for so long and
Mhm.
expectations of others. And that's why having job roles and responsibilities is so important. But I hold myself to a standard that I really can't hold other people to. I think we were on a call a few weeks ago and you're like, well, Doug, what if somebody wanted to do a demo at 4 in the morning? I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. I'm in. I don't care. I'll wake up at 3:30, prep for a demo, and do it at 4 a.m. Can I
Yeah.
ask that of an employee? And maybe not. And maybe I shouldn't anyways. Right. I mean, there's things that clients need to learn, educating the customer,
Mhm.
but also who our people are at Savvy Training, reflects on the business, but also keeping enough toes in the water and a pulse on the clients so that
Yeah.
any feedback that we get from clients, prospects, partners, are they doing things the Savvy way? Are all of
Right.
us, holding up to our, established core values? And at what point there's always going to be a little friction and tension, and it's business, and people have different ways of communicating, you know,
Mhm.
but how do we continue to foster our core values
Right.
and hold our clients accountable to core values? And I think that means we also have to educate the client. We want people like doing business with people that they like. But if I chose our clients based on do I like them or not, do I agree with their politics or not, we wouldn't have any business. And
Right.
so the best we can do is show our value, put our
Mhm.
best foot forward, have great support, great
Right.
technicians, great sales process, great follow through. And even
Absolutely.
when things are going really well, that's the moment you're like, okay, what am I missing? And how do I know what I'm missing? What red flags should there be that I'm not seeing? And
Mm.
still being tuned in to the business is super important
Yes.
as we look
Absolutely.
further down that horizon.
How have you felt being overly tethered in the business affected its long-term value, at least in the beginning and kind of through the growth stages? And what would you have done
Uh,
differently?
I mean, I know that this is titled Business Untethered or Tethered or whatever. It's more of like a guilt, actually,
Mm.
where I feel guilty if I'm not working. Like I
Mm.
should be doing more. I should
Yep.
be helping sales and support. I should be
Mhm.
fully involved in everything. And I think that's the problem of becoming untethered, is that
Yeah.
I've got this personal sense of guilt if I'm not working in the minutia on the business. And even though part of that might be true, what I also find is good things happen when I leave my computers behind and go on a bike ride or
Mhm.
take half a day and go hiking. Like all the other things are working, and then I come back and I turn on my email. I'm like, oh, look at all this good stuff. So I think part of becoming untethered is having courage to let others do what they're good at, and
Yeah.
in many ways just getting out of the way. And for me, tactically, that is not responding to every email in 5 seconds. It is not responding to, it's letting others take the lead on
Right.
responding to a client inquiry or an issue. I've got these all day EO meetings, and we're off the grid, and problems will come up, and magically problems will get solved without me
Mhm.
doing anything because we've got
Right.
great people who know how to deal with stuff. And I
Right.
don't always have to get in the mix and screw it up even more. So,
Right.
getting out of the way is maybe the best thing and the hardest thing.
Absolutely. And I think as business owners, I mean, we each have our own self-sabotaging beliefs about ourselves. Yours you just named as guilt, right? That comes from this probably high achieving restlessness. And all of us have, different saboteurs that kind of put us back in that place of, what's in our natural tendency. Have you learned ways of letting go of that? And I mean, now that if you can identify it, how would you recommend other business owners identifying truly what's at the root of them not letting go or needing to be involved day to day or hyper vigilant in the areas and in the details that they can let go of that once they realize and are aware?
I mean, I think I've become luckier lately because of the super strong team that's in place. And I think the way to get out of the way is that I still have daily, and if not daily, at least weekly check-in calls with everybody. And
Right.
so I still know the minutia of what's going on, but I don't have to necessarily deal with it. And I
Yep.
get to hear, the griping about the clients or the problems or vendors or, service delivery and all the stuff. And so I get to know about everything that's going on through these
Mhm.
daily or weekly check-in calls, but I don't necessarily have to deal with it. And I think that's the moment where,
Yeah.
I can be astounding. Where I mean, my job is to support our employees, my people, and to help them grow and give them the courage and skills in order to do what they need to do to, solve problems and solve issues. And some of it still requires, when it gets up to my level, there's not like layers and layers underneath me. We got like one layer. But when people pull me in, then it's
Mhm.
something pretty severe, and we do need to figure stuff out and get back to the minutia of what's happening in that certain issue or problem or person or whatever. But I wake up every morning, I look at the banks, I see, where's the money, where's the AR, what's on the map for opportunities today, who are our client calls, what demos we have going. I like to know what's going on.
Right.
But what I've learned is that I can go in and check all the things and see where
Mhm.
everyone's at and what everyone's doing. And then I can take the kids to school and go on a run or a bike ride. And I also, in the morning, I'll also get up and I still have work to do, or I will push out a bunch of things for folks to work on or deal with, or let's talk about this. And then I can come back 2 or 3 or 4 hours later,
Mhm.
and that gap of time actually gives everybody else enough time to
Right.
work on those issues. And then in the
Mhm.
afternoon, we can, work through them more granular and more in detail. But I think also because of the closeness we have, we've got,
Mhm.
call it 5 or 10 people, depending on how you look at it. What I've also learned is that people like doing what they are doing.
Mhm.
And I don't need to get in the muck with them every day and encourage them to push them harder. They're
Mhm.
doing great on their own with some encouragement from me. But it's
Yeah.
also fun to dig in and find out what clients are issues or what are the issues from clients, how do we deal with
Sure.
those? And so, I still have value in the minutia. It's just that I'm really trying hard to do less of it.
Absolutely. So those entrepreneurs and business owners who are struggling to let go and most importantly to trust their teams to take on the responsibility without compromising the overall vision. What how did you go about that? And what advice would you give them? Those who are still struggling to let go of that vine and move out of the way for their teams to thrive and shine.
I mean, honestly, it gets to there was one thing I did. So two things.
Mhm.
So a while ago, I did I forget even what it was, but I went to a executive training. It was all of it was junk except for one thing. And the guy said, as an entrepreneur, what you're trying to do is be out of the office 1 hour a day, 1 day a week, 1 week a month, 1 month a year. And I don't remember anything
Mhm.
else from that day or 2 day session or whatever I did, but I remembered that. And that was a piece of it. Like, God, what if I could be not working for 1 hour a day, 1 day a week, 1 week a month, 1 month a year? Like,
Mhm.
ludicrous. Just to think that that's even possible is ridiculous at that stage in time. It still is a little
Mhm.
bit ridiculous, but slightly less so. And I think the thing that changed was the people, of course, but the structure. And the
Mhm.
structure from EOS was super helpful because we created, 5 minute one-on-ones and then a 1 hour meeting each week,
Right.
and then a longer 3 hour meeting each month, and then a half day or a full day each quarter, and then a 2 day retreat each year.
Mhm.
And when you look at the cadence of the meeting structure and flow, and then of course, the L10s and all that
Mhm.
inside of that meeting structure, what it gave was a longer term vision, at least the meeting cadence. Because the
Right.
other thing that held me back was having 1 hour meetings 6 times a day about the same stupid stuff. And putting EOS in meant that, and I'm not a salesperson for EOS, but it was the structure of it
I'm
where
sending this to them. They're gonna put it
um,
on.
I'm
They're
sure
gonna.
tell Vern, there are a lot of things that can just wait, right? There's a lot of issues that you don't need to be on Slack or Teams and like solving.
Right.
I will get stuck solving problems all day long because they're not going to go
Right.
away. It's more pointing those problems into a meeting
Yep.
structure and cadence where they can actually be solved, and having, again, the courage
Hmm.
to wait to deal with an issue until you've got the meeting. Unless, of course, something's on fire, then of course you got to put it out.
Sure. Yeah.
Um,
If there's urgency.
but there was a lot
Yeah.
of, in my week, I block out Wednesdays and Friday afternoons. I
Hmm.
and it doesn't always work, but it's getting better. But the wintertime, I work remotely from the ski areas. I like to, I still, work up there. And Friday afternoons, I leave the office early and go home and hang with the kids and the family and all that. But blocking out time in the calendar that is sacred became really important to me.
Yeah.
And nobody can make a meeting with me on Wednesdays or Friday afternoons. And it's actually become a positive inconvenience where if you want to get with me, it has to wait. And not
Hmm.
that I've got ego about how great I am. It's just that I need that time
Yep.
carved out and blocked out that I don't have to deal with the minutia.
Exactly. Yeah.
Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday morning, for sure. I'm in it.
Hmm.
But having some time to get away or at least deal with internal admin stuff
Yeah.
that,
I
somebody else said, what's it like to be an entrepreneur? I'm like, what is it like? I mean, A, I've got no exit plan. B, I work all the time. And C, my day is based on intrusions.
it's
But
fun.
I am interrupted constantly, which means I
Right.
don't get stuff done, which means that I need a structure in place so that everybody
Yeah.
can get stuff done. And I think
Exactly.
that's sort of the trajectory that we're on.
Hmm.
Total work in
Love it.
progress,
Yep.
not there yet, but
I
moving
love
toward.
how you brought up the ego thing because it's actually the opposite. I think the ego makes us think that we need, like, others need us and I need to be needed and only I can solve this and I need to be hands-on all the time because I'm the one that can solve it. And I think what you just said reflects actually a lot of self-awareness you have. You being a better leader, being a better entrepreneur and business owner when you've taken care of yourself, when you've actually stepped back and provided the time and the space to have clarity, time with your family, all the things that you're passionate about doing, that takes a lot of leveling of your ego to say, I'm actually stronger when I step away, when I allow my team to flourish, when I don't have to be the one that has all the answers. That takes a lot of courage in itself and self-awareness for you to take care of yourself first. And that models a huge example to the team. I think the opposite of that is people, workaholic, addicted to, just constantly working and constantly being on. And that leads to burnout. It leads to, several issues. So I love how you pointed that out because I see it as the exact opposite. And I know the team would say the same in terms of like how you show up is a result of your boundaries, protecting your time, clarity you take to be the strongest leader and show up in the best way. So,
Don't get me wrong, I still have ego. It's just being able to
yeah,
being able to channel it differently. I mean,
sure. Yeah.
ego,
Ego's
ego,
not bad. It's just how we channel it.
but
That's a good call out.
I mean, ego paired with vulnerability, and I think it's
Mhm.
crucial. And I think, as we move through this dance of how to make the business better and stronger, it's understanding that
Mhm.
our ego paired with vulnerability is what creates the space
Yeah,
to become better.
I
The
love that.
self-care piece, there was a time, and I've got this whole, I kept my list of, this was 2017, 2018, and I created a structure of my whole day. And, wake up, breakfast with the kids, turn the computers, and I'd run through my whole list of like, okay, call opportunities and call clients and do invoicing and batch work and all that stuff. And what I found, on my list, I needed to call 15 opportunities a day, or 15 and or 15 existing clients a day. So that's 30 calls. And what I found was I became really good at pushing that off and not doing that work. And when
Mhm.
we sort of peeled back that onion of why am I having a hard time making my phone calls, it's because I wasn't in the right mindset to make the calls. I wasn't ready. I wasn't like, I didn't have the endorphins going. And then we peel the
Mhm.
onion back late, back more. I'm like, well, what is it that motivates me? What is it that gets me into a space where I'm motivated to do that kind of work? And
Yeah.
we peeled the onion back more. And honestly, for me, it was exercise. If I go on
Yep.
a run for 45 minutes or an hour or whatever, and then I've got my run, I got a head clear, my head is clear, I'm exercised, I'm like a
Yep.
dog, I'm fed and watered. And then I was in a space where I could blow through all my calls and get that work done. And it wasn't that I didn't like doing the calls, it's that I needed to prep myself
Mhm.
in a way that I could do that work. And I think that's part of the
Yeah.
self-care is like I'm a better leader when I've been skiing or been on a bike ride because then I'm
Yeah.
more in the headspace of, how can
Mhm.
I do the best work for me and others? And it took
Exactly.
a long time to learn that lesson.
Yeah, as it often does, I think,
Yeah.
for many of us, and we can revert back, and it's not always perfect, and that's okay too. Progress over perfection. So, slowly easing into those sorts of habits and disciplines to spend the time we need, take those free days, take those times, and really building the discipline of what our free time looks like. Every little step is,
And I think for the entrepreneurs out there, I'm a little bit crazy, and it's not that I've got an email zero inbox policy, but I can't stand. I hate email, but I love it at the same time, right? My ego is fed by getting an email that I have to respond to, right? It's only to me, and I have to deal with this. And what I'm learning is that a lot of that inbound stuff I can now send to
Mhm.
somebody else to, either to deal with or we can collaborate on together to
Right.
deal with it, where the
Yep.
ownership isn't 100% on me.
Yeah.
But I still have, 20 emails that I need to get through because there is stuff
Sure.
that only I can do. But once
Hmm.
I get to that zero email in my inbox, I'm like, and for 5 minutes, it's great. And then it all starts over again, but whatever.
Hmm.
But being able to not push work off onto others, but to
Oh,
get the
absolutely.
rest of the team in a place where they can handle most of this stuff is just
Hmm.
glorious. It is just great.
Yeah, delegation at its finest also means we're elevating roles. We're elevating people to do their best work and ourselves when we can effectively delegate. Great. Well, awesome. Thank you so much for your insights shared, Doug. And always just being a pleasure to work with and an amazing leader.
Well, it's wonderful working with you, Jill. And I think you've brought a ton of expertise and knowledge and structure to the business. And people want to work with people that they like. And I like you and
Hmm.
I like working with you. And I
Oh,
think
thanks.
as we try and get this little small business and double it and then triple it, there's a
Hmm.
ton of work to be done. And
Yeah.
now it's actually at the point where working on the business is super engaging. Where now working on the business is that all those leadership books and all those business self-help books and all that, they actually have a lot more impact because there's a structure in place that can
Yeah, we
handle
can
that
actually
kind of
do it.
stuff.
Right.
Yeah. So
Exactly. It's all
pleasure working
possible.
with you. And to anybody out there who watches this, feel free to find me and give me a shout. I'd be happy to talk with anybody about anything.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening today. And if you'd like to learn more about our amazing guest and my friend Doug at Savvy Training and Consulting, your experts in legal training, please visit their website at savvytraining.com.